The mercenary ship Iron Fang drifted through the cold darkness of space near the trade lanes. Commander stood on the bridge and watched the holographic display floating before his eyes. A small human cargo vessel appeared on the screen. It was called the Horizon, and it was carrying valuable ore through this sector of space. The mining consortium had paid a large sum of credits to capture this ship and take its cargo. They said it would be easy. They said the humans were weak. Was a tall creature with dark green scales covering his body. His yellow eyes glowed in the dim light of the bridge. He had fought in dozens of battles across the galaxy. He had killed warriors from species that could crush metal with their bare hands. He had never lost a contract. This job seemed like the easiest one he had ever taken. His second-in-command walked up beside him, was shorter but wider, with scars running across his face from old battles. He pulled up the Galactic database entry on humans and projected it onto the main screen for the crew to see. "Look at them," said with a laugh. "They have no claws, no fangs, no venom glands, no armored skin. They cannot even see in the dark. Their bodies are so fragile that a simple fall can break their bones. They live for less than 100 years. How did these creatures even make it into space?" The mercenaries on the bridge laughed. There were 40 of them on this ship. Each one was a trained killer. Each one had weapons and armor designed for combat. They looked at the images of humans on the screen and saw nothing to fear. The humans looked soft. They looked weak. They looked like prey. Read more from the database entry. It said humans came from a planet called Earth. It said they were classified as persistence predators. It said they had only been traveling through space for about 200 years. There were some additional notes at the bottom of the file, but did not bother reading them. Why would he need to know more about such a weak species? "The ship has a crew of 12, announced to his team. "We dock in 1 hour. We board. We take the cargo. If the humans resist, we kill them. If they surrender, we take them as prisoners and sell them later. Either way, we get paid." The mercenaries began preparing their weapons. They checked their plasma rifles. They sharpened their blades. They put on their combat armor. None of them were worried. This was going to be simple. On the horizon, the situation was very different. Captain Daniel stood in the small bridge of his cargo ship and watched the approaching vessel on his sensors. He was a man in his early 40s with gray starting to show in his short brown hair. His face was calm even though he knew exactly what was coming. Pirates and mercenaries were common in this part of space. He had dealt with them before. "Warship," said Tors from the navigation console, was young, maybe 25, with quick hands and a sharp mind for systems and communications. "They are on an intercept course. They will reach us in about 50 minutes. Daniel nodded slowly. He pressed the intercom button on his console. "All hands to the cargo bay. We have visitors coming." The crew gathered quickly. There were 12 of them in total. Lisa Monroe arrived first. She was the first officer, a woman with short black hair and eyes that never seemed to miss anything. She had been trained in combat since she was young. On Earth, it was just something people did for fitness and self-defense. Out here, it made her dangerous. Cole came next. He was the chief engineer, a quiet man who understood the ship better than anyone. He could make the Horizon do things that were not in any manual. He could turn every system on board into a weapon if he needed to. Walked in without making a sound. He was the security chief, but he rarely carried visible weapons. He did not need them. He had spent years learning how to fight with his hands and how to move without being seen or heard. The other crew members sometimes joked that was more ghost than man. Grace was the ship medic. She was small and looked gentle, but she had a mind that could cut through any problem. She understood biology and psychology better than most doctors in the galaxy. She knew how to heal people. She also knew how to break them. The rest of the crew filed in. Mechanics, cargo handlers, navigation assistants. They were ordinary people doing ordinary jobs. None of them looked like soldiers. None of them looked like threats. Daniel looked at his crew and felt a quiet pride. The galaxy thought humans were weak because they had no natural weapons. The galaxy did not understand what made humans dangerous. It was not claws or fangs or venom. It was something else entirely. "A mercenary ship is coming to take our cargo," Daniel said. "There are probably 30 to 50 of them based on the size of the vessel. They think we are easy targets. They think we will surrender or die quickly." Lisa smiled slightly. "They have not read the full file on humans, have they?" "They never do," Daniel replied. "They see that we are soft and small and they stop reading. They do not learn about our history. They do not learn about what we did to survive on Earth. They do not learn about the wars we fought against each other for thousands of years." Was already pulling up schematics of the ship on his tablet. "I can reroute the gravity systems. I can control the lights. I can seal doors and open airlocks. Give me 20 minutes. Simply nodded. He did not need to say anything. Everyone knew what he could do in the dark. Grace opened her medical kit and began checking supplies. "Try not to kill them," she said quietly. "Dead mercenaries cannot spread the word about what happens when you attack a human ship." Daniel looked at each member of his crew. They were not afraid, they were not panicking, they were preparing. This was what humans did when threatened. They did not run. They did not freeze. They adapted. They planned. They fought. "Let them come," Daniel said. "Let them learn why our species conquered a death world." The crew dispersed to their positions. The trap was being set. The mercenaries on the Iron Fang had no idea what was waiting for them. They thought they were hunting prey. They did not realize they were walking into the den of the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever seen. They were just humans after all. What could they possibly do? The Iron Fang connected to the horizon with a heavy clang that echoed through both ships. Magnetic clamps locked the vessels together. The mercenaries gathered at the airlock with their weapons ready, stood at the front of the group. He wanted to see the fear in the humans' eyes when they realized what was happening. "Cut through," he ordered. Two mercenaries stepped forward with plasma torches. The bright blue flames bit into the metal of the airlock door. Sparks flew in all directions. The smell of burning metal filled the air. Within minutes they had carved a hole large enough for the soldiers to pass through one at a time. Sent his first squad of 10 mercenaries into the human ship. They were his best scouts. They moved quickly and quietly through the opening and into the corridor beyond. Their thermal scanners were active. Their weapons were raised. They expected to find humans hiding in corners or running away in panic. Instead, they found nothing. The corridor was empty. The lights flickered overhead, casting strange shadows on the walls. The air was cold. There was no sound except for the hum of the ship's engines somewhere deep in the vessel. The mercenaries looked at each other with confusion. Where were the humans? "Spread out," the squad leader ordered. "Find them." The mercenaries moved through the cargo hold. Huge containers of ore filled the space, creating narrow pathways between them. The thermal scanners showed nothing. No heat signatures. No movement. It was as if the ship was completely abandoned. Then the lights went out. Total darkness swallowed the mercenaries. Their eyes, adapted to the bright lights of their own ship, could not adjust quickly enough. They switched on the small lights attached to their weapons, but the beams only cut thin lines through the blackness. Shadows seemed to move just beyond the edge of visibility. The first mercenary fell without making a sound. One moment he was standing at the back of the group. The next moment he was on the ground, unconscious. His companions did not notice until one of them stumbled over his body. "What happened?" someone asked. Before anyone could answer, 2 more mercenaries dropped. Then a third. Something was moving in the darkness, something fast, something silent, something that did not show up on any scanner. "Fall back," the squad leader shouted. His voice was higher than usual. Fear was starting to creep into his words. "Everyone fall back to the airlock." The remaining mercenaries turned and ran. They did not care about formation or tactics. They just wanted to get back to the light. but the darkness seemed to follow them. Another mercenary fell, then another. By the time they reached the airlock, only 3 of the original 10 were still standing. They burst through the opening and collapsed onto the floor of the Iron Fang. Their scales were pale. Their eyes were wide. They were breathing hard, looked at them with disbelief. "What happened in there?" he demanded. "Where are the others?" "Something took them," one of the survivors gasped. "We could not see it, we could not hear it, it just took them." Stepped forward. "That is impossible. Humans cannot see in the dark any better than we can. They have no stealth technology that our scanners cannot detect. You must have made a mistake." "I know what I saw," the mercenary replied. "Or what I did not see. There is something wrong with those humans." Refused to believe it. 10 of his best soldiers had been taken down by a handful of soft creatures with no natural weapons. It had to be some kind of trick. Maybe the humans had set traps. Maybe they had automated defenses. There had to be a logical explanation. What did not understand was that humans did not need technology to be invisible. Had learned to control his body temperature through years of training. He had lowered his heat signature until it matched the cold metal walls around him. He had moved through the maintenance vents that ran throughout the ship, emerging behind the mercenaries without making a sound. On Earth, humans had hunted this way for thousands of years. They had tracked animals through forests and deserts. They had learned to be patient. They had learned to be silent. They had learned to strike when their prey was most vulnerable. The mercenaries thought they were the hunters. They did not realize they had become the hunted. Gathered 20 more mercenaries. This time they brought portable lights and set them up throughout the corridors as they advanced. They moved in tight formation with their backs protected. They were veterans of countless battles. They would not be caught off guard again. They pushed deeper into the human ship. The cargo hold was behind them now. They entered the main corridor that led to the bridge. The walls were lined with pipes and wires. The floor was metal grating that clanged with each step. There was nowhere to hide. Then they saw him. Cole stood alone in the middle of the corridor. He was unarmed. He wore a simple work jumpsuit covered in grease stains. He looked at the 20 heavily armed mercenaries pointing their weapons at him, and he did not seem afraid. "You should leave," said. His voice was calm and quiet. The mercenaries laughed. This soft creature was telling them to leave. He was one human against 20 trained killers. He did not even have a weapon. "Take him," ordered through the communication link. The mercenary stepped forward, smiled. The gravity shifted. Half of the mercenaries suddenly flew upward and slammed into the ceiling. The other half were thrown sideways into the walls. Their weapons scattered across the floor. Their formation broke apart in an instant. Had spent the last hour reprogramming the artificial gravity generators throughout the ship. He could create localized distortions in any corridor, any room, any space he wanted. While the mercenaries struggled against the shifting gravity, Lisa Monroe emerged from a maintenance hatch in the wall. She moved like water flowing between rocks. Her hands were a blur as she disarmed one mercenary after another. She used their own weight against them. She redirected their strength. She turned their size into a weakness. Within minutes, 15 more mercenaries were down. Some were unconscious. Some were restrained with their own equipment. None were dead. The humans were not trying to kill them. They were trying to send a message. The 5 survivors retreated back to the airlock. Their hands were shaking. Their hearts were pounding. They had faced enemies across the galaxy. They had never faced anything like this. These were supposed to be weak creatures. These were supposed to be easy targets. Instead, they were fighting something that seemed to know their every move before they made it. Watched the helmet camera footage with growing horror. He finally understood what persistence predator meant. These humans did not rely on strength or speed. They relied on patience and endurance and intelligence. They did not stop. They did not give up. They kept coming until their prey collapsed. "Commander," said slowly, I think we made a mistake. Commander stared at the helmet camera footage playing on the main screen of the Iron Fang. He watched his mercenaries get thrown around like toys. He watched a single unarmed human woman disable 5 trained soldiers in less than 30 seconds. He watched the fear grow in the eyes of his best warriors. Something cold settled in his stomach. It felt unfamiliar. It took him a moment to realize it was doubt. "How many do we have left?" he asked. "Check the status board. 15 combat ready. The rest are either unconscious on the human ship or too injured to fight. We have lost 25 soldiers to 12 humans, 12 unarmed humans." Slammed his fist against the console. The metal dented under the force of his blow. This was not possible. His company had conquered fortified military bases. They had fought against species with natural armor that could stop plasma rounds. They had never lost more than a handful of soldiers on any mission. Now they were being dismantled by creatures the galaxy considered weak. "We are not leaving without that cargo," growled. "Send everyone, all 15, full combat gear, lethal force authorized. I do not care if we have to kill every human on that ship." Hesitated. "Commander, perhaps we should reconsider. These humans are not what we expected. Maybe the contract is not worth the cost." Turned and grabbed by the throat. His claws dug into the scales of his second in command. "We do not run from prey. We are warriors. We do not flee from soft creatures who cannot even grow proper claws. Now send everyone." Nodded and gave the order. The remaining 15 mercenaries gathered at the airlock. They were the survivors. They had seen what the humans could do. Some of them wanted to refuse the order, but fear of was greater than fear of the humans. At least that is what they told themselves. They entered the horizon in a tight formation. This time they moved slowly and carefully. They checked every corner. They watched every shadow. They kept their backs to the walls and their weapons pointed forward. The ship was quiet, too quiet. Lisa Monroe watched them from the security camera feed in the small room where the crew had set up their command center. Daniel stood beside her along with Grace and was still somewhere in the maintenance tunnels, ready to manipulate the ship systems on command. 15 left, Lisa said. They are scared but determined. Their commander must be pushing them hard. Daniel nodded. Good, scared soldiers make mistakes. They react instead of think. They see threats everywhere. Grace looked at the screen with professional interest. Their stress responses are fascinating. They have 3 hearts. All 3 are beating at elevated rates. Their bodies are flooding with combat hormones. In humans, this would cause tunnel vision and impaired judgment. I suspect the effect is similar in their species. Was monitoring communications. They are trying to call for backup, but I have the jamming field active. Nothing is getting in or out. As far as the galaxy knows, this ship is just drifting quietly through space. The mercenaries pushed forward through the ship. They reached the crew quarters. The doors were open. The rooms were empty. Beds were unmade. Personal items sat on shelves. It looked like the humans had simply vanished. One mercenary noticed something on a wall. It was a photograph of a group of humans standing together on what looked like a rocky landscape. They were smiling. Behind them was a vast canyon that dropped thousands of feet into the earth. A sign in the image read Grand Canyon National Park. "What is this place?" he asked. Another mercenary looked at the image. There, Earth. It is classified as a Category 12 Death World. The first mercenary frowned. Death World, but humans are weak. The classification is based on the planet, not the species. Look at the database entry. Earth has extreme temperature variations, massive predators, toxic plants, natural disasters, diseases that can kill in hours. Yet humans spread across the entire surface. They live in frozen wastelands. They live in burning deserts. They live in jungles filled with poisonous creatures. They conquered their death world without claws or fangs or venom. A chill ran down the mercenary's spine. He was starting to understand something. The galaxy measured danger by natural weapons. claws, teeth, armor, venom. By those standards, humans were harmless, but those standards were wrong. Humans were dangerous in a different way. They were dangerous because they adapted. They were dangerous because they endured. They were dangerous because they never gave up. The lights flickered. The mercenaries raised their weapons. They formed a circle with their backs to each other. They were ready this time. They would not be caught off guard. They would not let the darkness take them. Dropped from a ceiling panel into the center of their formation. For a moment, nobody moved. The mercenaries were too shocked to react. A human had just appeared among them like a ghost. He was unarmed. He was surrounded by 15 soldiers with plasma rifles pointed at him from every direction. He should have been terrified. Smiled. "You have two choices," he said. His voice was soft and calm. "You can surrender now and we will let you live, or you can try to shoot me and find out what happens next." One mercenary pulled the trigger. His plasma rifle clicked, but nothing happened. He tried again. Nothing. All around the circle, the mercenaries discovered that their weapons would not fire, had activated a localized electromagnetic pulse that disabled every electronic device in the corridor. Their rifles were useless. Their communication devices were dead. Their armor's powered systems were offline. The mercenaries had technology. The humans had planned for technology. Moved. He was not fast like the creatures of high-gravity worlds. He was not strong like the species that evolved with dense muscles, but he was precise. Every movement was calculated. Every strike hit exactly where it needed to hit. He knew anatomy. He knew where their nerve clusters were located. He knew how to cause maximum pain with minimum effort. 3 mercenaries fell before the others even realized the fight had started. 2 more dropped when they tried to use their claws against him, redirected their attacks with small movements that made them strike each other instead of him. He was not fighting them with strength. He was fighting them with knowledge. Lisa emerged from the shadows and joined him. Together they moved through the remaining mercenaries like wind through tall grass. It was not a battle. It was a demonstration. Every movement showed how outmatched they were. Every fallen soldier proved that natural weapons meant nothing against human adaptability. Within 5 minutes, all 15 mercenaries were on the ground. Some were unconscious. Some were groaning in pain. None were dead. The humans stood among the fallen soldiers without a scratch on them. They were not even breathing hard. Grace walked into the corridor with her medical scanner. She checked each mercenary to make sure none of them had life-threatening injuries. She treated the ones who needed immediate care. She was a healer. Even enemies deserved medical attention. "All stable," she reported. "They will recover, physically at least. Psychologically, I am not so sure." Daniel's voice came over the intercom. "Good work, everyone. Now let us invite the commander to come see what happened to his soldiers." Commander stood alone on the bridge of the Iron Fang. The status board showed 40 red indicators, 40 soldiers, all of them either captured or disabled. Every mercenary he had sent onto the human ship had failed to return. The helmet camera feeds had gone dark one by one until there was nothing left but static and silence. He tried to contact his company headquarters. The communication systems were blocked. He tried to send a distress signal to any nearby ships. Nothing went through. He tried to detach the Iron Fang from the human vessel and escape. The magnetic clamps would not release. The humans had taken control of his own ship's docking systems. Was trapped. The most feared mercenary commander in 3 sectors was trapped by 12 humans on a cargo ship. Was gone. He had been part of the last group that entered the horizon. His helmet camera had shown him walking through a corridor before something moved at the edge of the frame. Then static. Had watched his second in command, his oldest friend, disappear like all the others. A voice came through the communication system. It was calm and measured, and somehow that made it more terrifying than any battle cry. "Commander," the voice said, "this is Captain Daniel of the Horizon. I believe you and I need to have a conversation. Please come aboard my ship. I promise you will not be harmed." Gripped the console in front of him. His claws scraped against the metal surface. He could stay on the Iron Fang. He could wait for rescue that might never come. He could slowly starve as the humans controlled all access to supplies, or he could face them. He could look into the eyes of the creatures that had destroyed his company and try to understand what he was dealing with. He walked through the airlock alone. His footsteps echoed in the empty corridors of the horizon. There was no one to greet him, no guards, no weapons pointed at his head, just open doors leading deeper into the ship. He found them in the cargo bay. His soldiers were arranged in neat rows along one wall. They were alive but restrained with their own equipment. Some were awake and watching him with shame in their eyes. They had failed. They had been defeated by prey. The 12 humans stood in the center of the room. Captain Daniel was at the front. He was smaller than had expected, shorter, thinner. His hair was going gray. He looked like someone's grandfather. He did not look like a warrior who had just defeated 40 elite soldiers. "Welcome to my ship," Daniel said. "I apologize for the condition of your crew. We tried to be gentle, but they insisted on fighting." Looked around the room. He saw Lisa Monroe standing with her arms crossed. He saw leaning against a cargo container as if he was bored. He saw Cole checking something on a tablet. He saw Grace treating an injured mercenary with careful hands. He saw the others going about their tasks like this was just another ordinary day. "How?" asked. His voice was rough. "How did you do this? You have no weapons, no armor, no training facilities on this small ship. You are cargo haulers, you are civilians." Daniel smiled slightly. "On Earth we have a concept called hobbies, things we do for fun in our free time. Lisa practices combat arts. She has done so since she was 12 years old, enjoys stealth training. He finds it relaxing, likes to modify ship systems. Grace studies alien biology as a personal interest. We are civilians by profession, but humans are never just one thing." "Your species has only been in space for 200 years, said. "How can you be this dangerous?" "Because we spent millions of years becoming dangerous before we ever left our planet," Daniel replied. "Our world tried to kill us every single day. Predators hunted us, diseases ravaged us. The climate changed and destroyed our food sources. We should have died out 1,000 times. Instead, we adapted. We learned. We built tools and weapons and strategies. We conquered every environment on Earth. We killed the predators that hunted us. We cured the diseases. We changed the very climate itself. By the time we reached the stars, there was nothing left on our world that could threaten us. We had become the apex predators of a death world." Felt the cold feeling in his stomach grow stronger. He had studied many species before hunting them. He knew what made creatures dangerous: sharp claws, powerful muscles, toxic venom, thick armor. Humans had none of these things, but now he understood that he had been measuring danger wrong. "Your database entry," he said slowly. "It said you were persistence predators. What does that mean?" He stepped forward. Her eyes were bright with interest. "It means our ancestors did not catch prey by being faster or stronger. They caught prey by following it, walking after it, hour after hour, day after day. Most animals can outrun a human in a sprint, but humans can walk forever. We sweat to cool our bodies. We carry water to stay hydrated. We track our prey until it collapses from exhaustion. Then we kill it. We do not stop. We do not give up. We just keep coming." Looked at the mercenaries on the floor. They were the fastest and strongest soldiers his credits could buy. They had charged into this ship expecting a quick victory. Instead, the humans had worn them down. Ambush after ambush, trap after trap. The mercenaries had exhausted themselves fighting shadows while the humans barely broke a sweat. "You could have killed us," said. "Every single one of us. Why did you not?" Daniel walked closer to the mercenary commander. He was half the size of His body was soft and fragile, but somehow when he looked up there was no fear in his eyes. There was only certainty. "Because dead mercenaries cannot deliver messages," Daniel said. "You are going to take your soldiers back to your company. You are going to tell them what happened here. You are going to spread the word across every station and outpost and tavern you visit. You are going to tell everyone that you attacked a human ship with 40 elite soldiers and you lost. Understood. This was not about survival. This was not about protecting the cargo. This was about reputation. The humans were building a legend. They were creating a story that would spread through the galaxy. A story about what happens when you underestimate humanity. Why asked, why does that matter to you? Daniel's eyes grew cold. Because the next mercenary who thinks about attacking a human ship will remember your story. They will think twice. They will wonder if the easy prey might actually be the most dangerous thing they have ever faced. And maybe, just maybe, they will leave us alone. The room was silent. 40 defeated mercenaries watched their commander face the reality of what had happened. They had come as hunters. They would leave as warnings. The cargo bay of the horizon was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Commander stood among the fallen bodies of his mercenaries and tried to process what had happened. His mind kept returning to the same impossible fact. 12 humans, 40 soldiers, complete defeat. Captain Daniel gestured toward a small table that had been set up near the center of the room. 2 chairs faced each other. A metal pot sat on the table along with 2 cups. Steam rose from the pot carrying a bitter but not unpleasant smell. "Sit," Daniel said. "Let us talk like civilized beings." Hesitated. Every instinct told him this was a trap, but what more could the humans do to him? They had already proven they could kill him whenever they wanted. The fact that he was still breathing meant they had other plans. He sat down. The chair creaked under his weight. Daniel sat across from him and poured a dark liquid from the pot into both cups. He pushed one cup toward. "What is this?" asked. "Coffee. It is a drink from we make it from roasted seeds. It contains a mild stimulant that helps us stay alert. Try it." Picked up the cup carefully. His claws made it difficult to hold the small handle. He brought the liquid to his mouth and tasted it. Bitter, strong, strangely satisfying. "Why are you being kind to me?" asked. "I came here to rob you, to kill you if necessary. Why offer me a drink?" Daniel took a sip from his own cup before answering. "Because cruelty serves no purpose. You are already defeated. Hurting you now would not change anything. It would just make us into something we do not want to be." Around the room, the other humans were moving with quiet efficiency. Grace was treating the injured mercenaries with the same care she would give to her own crew. Cole was checking on the restrained soldiers to make sure their bonds were not too tight. Lisa Monroe was organizing the captured weapons into neat piles. They were not gloating. They were not celebrating. They were just doing what needed to be done. "I do not understand your species," admitted. "You are soft. You are fragile. You should be weak, but you fight like demons. You show mercy like saints. You make no sense." Daniel smiled. It was a tired smile, the kind that comes from explaining something too many times. "We are complicated," he said. "That is the best explanation I can give you. Humans are capable of terrible violence and incredible kindness. We can build cities and burn them down. We can cure diseases and create weapons that destroy planets. We are not one thing. We are everything all at once." Thought about the Galactic database entry on humans. It had listed their physical characteristics. There. It had said nothing about this. It had said nothing about the contradiction at the heart of human nature. "The additional notes," said slowly. "The ones at the bottom of your species file, what do they say?" Daniel's smile widened slightly. "They say that humans should not be engaged without overwhelming force. They say that human civilians often have combat training. They say that humans fight hardest when protecting their homes and their crew. They say that underestimating humans has been the last mistake of many species." I did not read those notes. No one ever does. They see the soft skin and the short and they think they know everything they need to know. They do not realize that our weakness is what made us strong. We had to be clever because we were not powerful. We had to work together because we could not survive alone. We had to adapt because we could not dominate. Tors approached the table. "Captain, I have contacted the galactic authorities. A patrol ship will arrive in about 6 hours to take the prisoners into custody." Felt a flash of anger. Prisoners. He was going to be handed over to the authorities like a common criminal. His reputation would be destroyed. His company would fall apart. Everything he had built over decades of work would crumble because he had chosen the wrong target. "What happens to us now?" he asked. "You will face justice for your attack," Daniel said, "but I will speak on your behalf. I will tell them that you surrendered peacefully. I will tell them that no lives were lost on either side. The sentence will be lighter because of that." "Why would you help me?" Daniel finished his coffee and set the cup down on the table. He looked at with eyes that seemed much older than his face. "Because that is who I want to be. The galaxy expects humans to be weak and soft. I want them to know that we are also fair and just. Strength without honor is just brutality. We did not survive Earth by being brutal. We survived by building communities, by taking care of each other, by being better than the world that tried to kill us." The hours passed slowly. The mercenaries were gathered and prepared for transport. Their wounds were treated. They were given food and water. They were treated with dignity despite what they had done. Some of them could not understand it. They had come to steal and kill. Why were their victims being kind? Found himself sitting next to Grace while she bandaged a cut on his arm. He watched her work with careful, gentle hands. "I have killed dozens of beings," said quietly. "I have done terrible things. Why are you helping me?" Grace did not look up from her work. "Because you are injured and I am a healer. What you did in the past does not change what you need right now. Maybe someday you will remember this moment. Maybe you will choose to help someone else instead of hurting them. That is the only way the galaxy gets better, one small choice at a time." The patrol ship arrived exactly 6 hours later. The mercenaries were transferred into custody. Commander was the last to leave the horizon. He stopped at the airlock and turned to face Captain Daniel one final time. "I will tell everyone," said. "I will tell them what happened here. I will tell them what humans are really like." Daniel nodded. "That is all I ask." Walked through the airlock and into the patrol ship. Behind him, the door sealed shut. The last thing he saw was Daniel standing in the corridor of his small cargo ship, surrounded by his crew of 12 ordinary humans who had done the impossible. The story spread quickly. Within weeks, every mercenary company in 3 sectors knew what had happened. Within months, the tale had reached the far edges of explored space. It grew with each telling. The numbers changed. The details shifted, but the core remained the same. 12 humans, 40 elite soldiers, complete defeat, no deaths. Captains began to reconsider their targets. Pirates started avoiding ships with human crews. The soft creatures who had seemed like easy prey were suddenly something to fear, not because they were strong, not because they were fast, but because they were human. They were just humans, soft and fragile and short-lived, but they came from a death world. They had conquered their planet through sheer stubborn refusal to die. They adapted to every threat. They learned from every defeat. They kept coming no matter how many times they were knocked down. That was why the mercenaries were petrified, not because humans had claws or fangs or venom, but because humans had something more dangerous. They had the will to survive. They had the intelligence to adapt. They had the patience to wait and the determination to never give up. In the grand tapestry of galactic species, there were creatures far stronger than humans. There were beings far faster and more deadly, but none of them had the same combination of traits that made humanity unique. None of them had risen from prey to predator through nothing but persistence and cleverness. The legend of the horizon spread across the stars, and every being who heard it learned the same lesson that Commander had learned in that cargo bay. Never underestimate a human.